What's going on, guys? Welcome to my YouTube channel, Musa Reacts. Today we're going to be talking about our pre-season, how it's gone so far, and what the expectations are, and can we really read a lot from pre-season and how it's gone. So as you guys know, we're the champions of the Premier League Series trophy. Shamelessly, our first trophy, so we've won it. So what can we say about that? But in all reality and all jokes aside, it's been a mixed pre-season, just because of how we finished the season so badly last year, and Amorim coming in, and everyone had a lot of hopes that he couldn't be worse than Eric Ten Hag, which he was. Some people would say worse. I would say he just matched him, and we had a bad season. And the worst thing is that we actually got to a European Cup final. And nobody expected for us to be losing to Spurs in a European Cup final and allowing them to win their first European trophy, which we did in a long time. And obviously that hurt, but we're here now, and we want to see the ideas and the things that the manager's been trying to push into this team and trying to sell to this team. We want to see those ideas come through, especially in pre-season, because it gives us an idea where we are. I've seen some of the things that Amorim's trying to do, and at the same time, I'm still seeing the old United of what we saw last year and some of the issues that we had in the team. And I think the biggest problem with Amorim is that he likes to vacate the midfield, and he doesn't like to play through the midfield. He wants two people in the middle of the park who are athletic, who can support the defence, support the attack, and do a lot of running up and down, but without actually doing anything. A lot of running without actually having possession in the middle of the park and actually controlling the game. He likes to get his assists from the wings and from the wide players. And if you look at his time at Sporting, I believe his highest assist was the right wing back. Or the left wing back. It was one of the wing back positions that had the highest assists within the team. I want my assists to come from the 10s, the midfielders. I don't want it to be coming from the wing backs, but the system that he plays, sadly, it leaves us in a position where we're vacating the middle of the park and we're not playing through the middle of the park, and then we're ending up with what you saw in this pre-season and what we saw basically last season. So if we look at the Premier League Series trophy, there was only a few teams in it. It was us, Everton, Bournemouth and West Ham. And it was just the 3 games that we had. And I think we started off well with our first game against West Ham, but we still saw that even though we beat them 2-1, we still saw players like Aaron Wan-Bissaka and other players like Bowen who were getting on the ball and showing how they can threaten a United team, and kind of opening up some of the frailties that we had last season. So even though we won the game and we could see that our passing was more fluent, the players kind of know each other's movements a bit better. But again, you see that our patterns are coming from the wing backs and the 10s rather than the 2 6s or 8s, whatever you want to call them, in the middle of the park. They don't really get involved in the game that much. It's always coming through the wingers and the wing backs and the 10s. And so for me, it's like, I just feel like there's only so many games you can kind of have that approach and be successful. Is it sustainable? I'm not too sure. And I think the game that got most of us giddy was the game against Bournemouth. But when you look at the Bournemouth game that we won, just because we won it 4-1, it wasn't the first 11. It's not the 11 that United expected to see out that put the damage, that put that damage in that game. And yeah, we saw, good football. We saw better football. But I just feel like Bournemouth are in a different space in their pre-season, and they're just not quite up to it to the levels that we were in terms of our fitness and our strength. And I couldn't take. A lot of people got giddy and said United are back. They're playing good football, this and that. But it wasn't the 11. It wasn't the first 11. What we got to see the first 11 was in our last game against Everton, the 2-2. And we saw that even though we had a solid first 20 minutes, I would say first solid 35 minutes. We came out for the first 35 minutes. The last 10 minutes of the first half weren't that good, but the first 35 minutes, we came out solid, and we saw what Amorim might want from the players. But again, I think what was lacking and what was massive on show was that Delo getting pushed into this team has to stop. We know, like Saeed says, it's his pal, it's his guy. But at the same time, putting him in left wing back, you saw the frailties that we had, and we saw the importance that Dorgu is actually having on his team, because the prior 2 games to that, Dorgu has been one of our better players, and I think he's filling into that position, and he's getting more relaxed playing that wing back position and just understanding the demands of the Premier League teams. One of the good things that I take away from pre-season is that we have played Premier League opposition. So it's us getting used to, or especially for the players, in terms of what's going to be waiting for us. But again, Dalot, we have to drop him. And then again, Bruno. As soon as we push Bruno back into that midfield and he's sitting in the 6 and the 8s, Bruno does what he does. Whenever you give him space, he's going to look for the long balls, he's going to look for them Hollywood passes, and it just doesn't work. I feel like to tell someone like Bruno, who's always played further up in that system, at 30 years old, to now start being someone who's going to be dogged in the middle of the park, doing a lot of running and kind of being disciplined. As they say, it's hard to teach old dogs new tricks, and I think this is what the manager's trying to do with Bruno. But I kind of think it's more sinister than that. I think that the manager's holding on to Bruno because he just feels like Bruno's his guy in the dressing room. And I think if he loses Bruno Fernandes, he finds it harder to hold on to that dressing room. And if he can't hold on to that dressing room, we know what happens. He loses his job. So I think it was a play on keeping his job and keeping someone in that dressing room that he can rely on, and Bruno Fernandes. But what's really going to happen if he persists with this is that Bruno's going to be his downfall. Bruno's going to be the reason that he loses his job, because it just doesn't work. And I've done a video on, if you don't go out and buy a midfielder, I think the type of person or the type of profile that we need in the middle of the park, we actually have in a younger player. So go and check out what the video that I did about the midfield and who I think should be the player that to come in there with Colby. I think Colby's actually done well and he's proven himself. And talking about the midfield, Ugarte had a poor game yesterday in our last preseason game. He was struggling, found it difficult. Every time he won the ball, he lost it. Every time he tried to make a pass, he misplaced it. Every time he tried to, just get his foot on the ball, he couldn't. He found it very difficult. And I don't want to get onto him too much because we saw this last season, and I just feel like Ugarte needs support in the midfield 3. He does very well in the midfield 3 because he has that more protection, and I just feel like in the 2 we're kind of, and this is a problem we've had in the past, getting players and then exposing their weaknesses, rather than getting players and covering their weaknesses and kind of pushing onto what they're actually good at, supporting what they're actually good at. We know Ugarte is not that good on the ball technically, so you put him in a midfield 3 and then you kind of protect what he's not good at. But what does our manager do to a player that's not really a ball playing midfielder, and he's just a tackler and he's someone who just likes to tackle and get the ball back in, whether it's in our half or on the opposition's half? He puts him in a 2 with players like Bruno who vacate in the midfield and find it difficult, or you put him in there with Colby, who then says, okay, cool, I have to spend a lot more time defending to help out my guy than actually being a part of the attack and supporting the forward players. So again, guys, it's hard to really see how anything's going to change with the way the manager is trying to play the game. One of the things I would say is this. When we look at the 2 players that we've brought in so far, in Cunha and Mbeumo, I didn't see them as a priority. I didn't see the 10s as a priority, because when I look at the profile of Cunha, I see that in Kobbie Mainoo. Kobbie Mainoo grew up as a kid, idolizing the players like Ronaldinho and skillful players. We've seen the best moments of Kobbie Mainoo when he's playing in that left 10, where we now have Cunha, being agile on the ball, easy to drop shoulders and beat a player, got a good finish on him. We've seen it. Is he as good as Cunha? I'm not saying that. Is he a player in the mould and in the profile of Cunha that if you as a manager have a good style of play and you know what you're trying to do as a team, that you get a very good Kobbie Mainoo and you get to have a better run in the Premier League? I believe that. And then you look at Mbeumo, we've got another young player in the same mould as Mbeumo. That's Ahmad. Ahmad in our last game and in our previous games has been one of our best attackers. Regardless of where you put him, even if you put Ahmad left back, he's still turning up as one of the best attackers on the pitch. So Ahmad is a wasted number 10, or somebody that plays the furthest up in the front in the midfield 3. But Ahmad is just in the same mold as Mbeumo. So you've got now Cunha and Mbumo, where you could have had Kobe and Ahmad and save money and just went and got someone like Walton from Crystal Palace, Baleba from Brighton, and started the transfer window with two solid midfielders, knowing that you're going to have a stronger hold in the middle of the park. Because as we said, we know Bruno, if you're going to keep him, then he can play in the 10 with an Ahmad, he can play in the 10 with a Kobe. And I just feel like as good as players Cunha and Mbumo are, they are not a bigger priority than fixing the middle of the park where games are won and lost. And I feel like we saw that with them on the pitch yesterday, that if the middle of the park is not sorted out, no matter how good they are, games will be won and lost in the middle of that park. And I feel like we're seeing that we're wanting, and we need more people in there. Now the fan base talking about we need to sort out the midfield, but when they were getting giddy because we got flipping Mbumo and Cunha in, they wasn't thinking about that. So again, guys, I just see it as, again, I want to say it again, we're not qualified. We keep on making the same mistakes and asking for the same things to be done. And as a fan base, we need to kind of wake up and kind of realize that unless we get a manager who plays a certain type of football and makes a team look better. We've seen managers who make bad players look better. Van Gaal, these type of players, whether it's Jurgen Klopp, Pep, where they can make players look better than they are, and then they go and get players who are actually better than they are and make their system look perfect. But you're waiting on a manager like Amrin, who he needs players to make his system look perfect. And if he doesn't get these players, all of a sudden what he's doing doesn't look good. We don't need managers like that, because like I said, with a good manager, you put Kobe, you put Ahmad in those 10s, and it's the same profile as Cunha and Mbumo. And because of your style of play and how you play the game and how you approach the game, you get a good attacking team and you fix the midfield, which we haven't done again. And we're, 2 weeks away from the start of the season. We got one more game next week against Fiorentina. Basically, David De Gea coming back to Old Trafford to have his farewell match that he didn't have. And then, the following week we got Arsenal at home. Are we ready? Are we prepared? Can we get a midfielder in? Can we push the bar out and go and get someone like Baleba? I don't know, guys. Let me know what you think in the comments. Make sure to like and subscribe.